The old alien market was silent after the storm. Shattered glass and twisted metal lay scattered under the pale blue sky. Ethan, a human traveler, walked slowly through the wreckage, his boots sinking into wet dust. He had seen destruction before, but this place felt different. It felt abandoned, forgotten, haunted. He came here looking for supplies, food, tools, anything that could help him survive the long desert stretch ahead. His ship had crashed 2 days ago. The power cells were dead and his radio was broken. He needed to reach the nearest colony, but first he needed something to eat. As he moved past a fallen stall, a faint sound stopped him. It wasn't wind or metal scraping. It was a voice, small, trembling. I can't find my mother. Ethan froze. The words came again, softer this time, but filled with pain. He turned toward the sound. Near the remains of a canopy, he saw movement. A tiny figure sitting among broken crates. She was small, maybe 10 years old by human measure, with silver skin that shimmered faintly in the sunlight. Her eyes were closed, covered by a thin white cloth. The sight made his chest tighten. She was blind. Ethan took a cautious step forward. "Hey there," he said gently. "Are you hurt?" The girl didn't turn her head. Her pointed ears twitched, listening. Who's there?" she asked, her voice shaky but curious. "Just a traveler," he replied. "I heard you calling. Are you alone?" She hugged something close to her chest, a small pendant glowing faintly blue. "I lost my mother. I can't find her," she whispered again. "She told me to wait here, but she didn't come back." Ethan looked around. The market was empty. No footsteps, no signs of life. Only silence and distant thunder. Whoever this girl's mother was, she wasn't here anymore. He sighed and crouched near her. "What's your name?" "Lyra," she said softly. "What's yours?" "Ethan." Lyra tilted her head slightly as if studying the sound of his voice. "You're human," she said. He raised an eyebrow. "You can tell?" "I can feel your voice," she replied. "It sounds warm." Ethan wasn't sure what she meant, but something about her calm tone unsettled him. Blind alien children didn't just sit alone in destroyed markets holding glowing pendants. There was more to this. He glanced at the pendant again. Its design was familiar. Human craftsmanship. Military-grade metal. He'd seen it before, back when he was a soldier. "Where did you get that?" he asked. "It was my mother's," Lyra said, tightening her grip. "She said it would help me find her." Ethan frowned. If that pendant was what he thought it was, it might have a locator chip, which meant someone could be tracking it. Maybe whoever caused this destruction. "Lyra," he said carefully, "we need to get out of here. It's not safe." She shook her head slowly. "I promised to wait." She said she'd come back. Thunder cracked in the distance. The wind picked up, carrying dust and smoke. Ethan's instincts screamed at him to move. "Listen," he said, kneeling in front of her. "Your mother wouldn't want you to stay where it's dangerous." "Let me help you find her," Lyra hesitated. "You'll really help me?" He nodded. "I will." For a moment she seemed to see him without sight. She reached out a trembling hand and touched his arm. Her fingers were cold but steady. "Your heartbeat," she whispered. "You mean it." Ethan felt a strange pull inside his chest, something between guilt and duty. He wasn't sure why this alien girl mattered so much to him, but he couldn't leave her here. He lifted her gently, wrapping his jacket around her small frame. As he stood, a sharp metallic sound echoed behind him. He turned quickly. A hovering drone glided through the smoke, its red sensor light scanning the ruins. Ethan's pulse spiked. That was a tracker drone, one of the new models used by off-world enforcers. It turned toward them. Ethan ducked behind a fallen wall, holding Lyra close. "Stay quiet," he whispered. She didn't move, didn't even breathe loudly. But the pendant began to glow brighter, reacting to the drone's presence. "Your pendant," he whispered urgently. "Turn it off." "I can't," she said. "It reacts when they're near." The drone scanned the area, its red light sweeping across the rubble. Ethan could feel the hum of its engines through the ground. Then suddenly the drone stopped moving. Its light flickered, then dimmed. It hovered in place, motionless. Ethan blinked. "What the?" Lyra's head tilted slightly. "It can't see us now," she said softly. He looked at her in disbelief. "What did you do?" "I told it to stop," she replied simply. It listened. Ethan stared at her, unsure if he heard right. A blind child just disabled a military drone with her voice. Before he could question further, the drone crashed to the ground with a metallic thud. Sparks flew. Lyra flinched but didn't cry. Ethan knew one thing. This girl wasn't ordinary. Someone powerful wanted her, and now they both were in danger. He tightened his grip on her and looked toward the mountains beyond the ruins. "All right, Lyra," he said quietly. "We're getting out of here." She nodded, her small hands clutching his jacket. "Do you know where we're going?" Ethan looked at the horizon. "No," he said. "But wherever your mother is, that's where we'll go." The wind howled again, carrying away the dust and smoke. Behind them, the market lay silent once more, except for the faint blue glow of the broken drone, flickering like a warning light in the dark. The journey had begun. Ethan kept walking through the cracked streets, carrying Lyra in his arms. The storm had passed, but the sky still burned red from the ruined atmosphere. Smoke curled from the wreckage behind them, where the drone had fallen. Lyra rested her head against his shoulder, silent, but her small hands never let go of the pendant. They moved toward the edge of the city, where rusted towers bent like old bones. Every sound echoed through the hollow ruins. Ethan stopped often, checking corners, scanning rooftops. His soldier instincts had kept him alive this long, but now he wasn't alone. Every shadow looked like a threat. "Are we safe?" Lyra asked softly. "Not yet," he said. "Someone's still looking for you." She turned her face toward the wind. "I can hear them," she whispered. "Far away. Machines and people. They're searching." Ethan frowned. "You can hear that?" She nodded. "I don't see the world like others. I hear everything. Every heart. Every fear." Her words chilled him. He didn't fully understand her, but he believed her. There was something different about her, something that felt more than alien. They reached an old transport tunnel buried half under the sand. Ethan pushed open the door, the rust squealing loud in the silence. Inside it was dark and damp, the air heavy with dust. He set Lyra down on a crate and checked his weapon. "One charge left." "Not much. Rest here," he said. "We'll wait till night before moving again." Lyra tilted her head, listening. "You sound tired," he gave a small laugh. "I've been worse." She smiled faintly, then turned serious. "You're afraid." "Not for yourself. For me?" Ethan didn't answer. She wasn't wrong. He sat near the wall, pulling his jacket tighter. "Lyra, do you remember anything before the market? Before you lost your mother?" She thought for a long time before answering. "I remember running. Bright lights. Loud voices. My mother held my hand. She said the humans were coming. She told me not to be scared." Ethan froze. "Humans?" She nodded. "Then there was fire. I fell. When I woke up, I couldn't see anymore. She was gone." The words hit him hard. If humans were involved, this wasn't a simple rescue. It was something darker. Maybe experiments. Maybe betrayal. The pendant with the human code proved that much. He reached for the pendant. "May I see it again?" Lyra handed it to him. The blue light pulsed gently, matching her heartbeat. Ethan opened the small latch on the side and found a microchip hidden inside. On the surface was a marking, E17. His heart skipped. That was his old unit's number. He stared at the symbol, memories flashing back. His unit had been assigned to protect a secret facility years ago. They were told it was a medical lab, but no one knew what really went on inside. One night the facility exploded, killing everyone inside except him. He'd left the army the next day. Now the same code sat inside this alien girl's pendant. He closed it quickly. "Lyra," he said quietly, "your mother. Was she ever with humans?" She tilted her head, confused. "I don't know. She said I was special, that both sides would want me." Before Ethan could reply, a low hum filled the tunnel. The ground trembled. "Stay down," he whispered. He pulled her close as the ceiling above them flickered with blue light. A drone swarm passed overhead, scanning the ruins. Lyra grabbed his hand. "They're close. They can feel me. Then we move now." He lifted her again and ran through the narrow passage. Dust fell from the ceiling as the drones buzzed louder. A beam of light swept across the tunnel behind them, burning holes into the ground. Ethan dove into a side passage, rolling behind an old freight door. He held his breath. The light passed by, missing them by inches. The drones moved on, their hum fading into the distance. Lyra clung to him, shaking. "Why do they want me?" "I don't know yet," Ethan said. "But I'll find out." She looked up at him, her covered eyes glowing faintly from the reflection of her pendant. "You sound like her," she whispered. "Like my mother." The words struck deep. He wanted to tell her he wasn't her mother, Wasn't even a hero, but something in her voice stopped him. Maybe fate had put them together for a reason. He stood and looked toward the dark end of the tunnel. "There's an old outpost on the other side of this valley," he said. "If we can reach it, we might find records. Maybe a clue about your mother," Lyra nodded. "Then we go there." He smiled faintly. "You're brave." "I just want my mother," she said. Ethan looked into the darkness ahead, the echoes of drones fading behind them. The path forward was dangerous, but he had made his choice. He wasn't leaving her behind. He adjusted the strap of his pack and lifted her once more. "Hold on tight," he said. Lyra rested her head against his chest. "I can feel your heart again," she said softly. "It beats faster now." Ethan started walking toward the exit. "That's because trouble's coming," he said. Behind them, far in the distance, the fallen drone flickered back to life. Its broken lens turned red again, sending a silent signal into the sky. They had been found. The night was cold as Ethan and Lyra moved through the tunnels that stretched far beneath the broken city. The walls were wet and covered in moss that glowed faintly blue. Water dripped from the ceiling, echoing through the silence. Ethan carried a small light from his wristband, but he kept it dim. He didn't want to draw attention. Lyra walked beside him now, her hand gently holding the edge of his coat. Though she couldn't see, her steps were sure. She seemed to know where the ground sloped or where the rocks were loose before he did. "How do you know where to step?" he asked quietly. "I hear the air move," she said. "I feel how the sound bounces. The walls talk to me." Ethan gave a small smile. "That's one way to see the world," she nodded. "Sometimes I think it's better this way." "I can feel what others can't," he didn't reply. His mind was heavy with questions. What was she really? Why did her pendant carry his old unit code? And how could she stop drones with her voice? None of it made sense, yet something deep inside told him not to doubt her. They stopped near an old generator room. Ethan checked his scanner. The map still showed part of the tunnel leading toward the surface near the valley. Beyond that was the old human outpost, abandoned for years but maybe still holding power. He looked at Lyra. "We'll rest here a bit. The air's clean enough." She sat on a crate and turned her head upward. "I can hear wind above us." "We're close to open air," Ethan nodded. "That's good news." He pulled out a ration bar and offered it to her. "Hungry?" She smiled. "I can't eat human food. It hurts my stomach." He raised an eyebrow. "Then what do you eat?" She thought for a moment. "Light," she said softly. "My mother said it feeds my body. When the pendant glows, I feel full." Ethan stared at the pendant again. Its glow had dimmed since the drones passed. "So that's why you never get weak," he muttered. Lyra tilted her head. "You sound worried again." "I'm just thinking," he said. "We need to stay ahead of them." As they rested, the tunnel rumbled. Dust fell from above. Ethan stood instantly, weapon in hand. The sound was distant but growing. Metal striking stone, engines humming. "They're here," Lyra whispered. Ethan grabbed her hand. "Move!" They ran through the narrow passage. The tunnel curved upward toward a broken stairway. Faint moonlight spilled from the top. Ethan pushed Lyra ahead, boosting her over the last step, then climbed after her. They emerged into the open valley. The sky stretched wide, filled with stars and a single shattered moon. The air was thin and cold, but it felt alive. Lyra took a deep breath. "I can feel it." The sky. Ethan looked around. The valley stretched far, covered in silver grass that shimmered like liquid metal. At the edge, he saw the outline of towers, what remained of the old human outpost. "That's where we're heading," he said. But before they could move, a faint beep came from his wristband. A tracker alert. He cursed softly. The fallen drone had sent a signal after all. Lyra gripped his arm. "They're following the light." Ethan glanced at her pendant. It pulsed again, brighter this time, reacting to something unseen. He reached out to cover it, but she shook her head. "Don't, it's warning me." A low hum rolled through the valley. From the horizon, several lights appeared, hovercrafts cutting through the darkness. "They're fast," Ethan muttered. "We need to hide." He spotted a cluster of ruins nearby and rushed toward them. Inside, he found an old transport shell half buried in sand. They slipped inside, crouching low. The air smelled of rust and oil. Lyra pressed her ear to the metal wall. "They're scanning the ground. I can hear the beams move." Ethan adjusted his weapon, ready if they found them. "How many?" 5 machines, 2 living, she whispered. The others are cold, he frowned. Cold? They have no hearts, she said. Just wires. Ethan looked at her, realizing she could sense more than hearing. She could feel life itself. Outside, a beam of light swept across the ruins. It passed over their shelter and stopped. Ethan held his breath. The sound of engines grew louder. Then Lyra began to hum softly. The air vibrated around them, gentle at first, then stronger. The beam flickered and shifted away. The machines turned in confusion, their sensors disrupted. Within seconds, they retreated back toward the horizon. The valley went silent again. Ethan exhaled slowly. You just saved us again, he said. Lyra smiled faintly. My mother said my voice can guide the lost. Maybe it can hide us too. He looked out toward the distant outpost lights. Your mother sounds like she knew more than she told you. She said humans would help me, Lyra whispered. She said one would find me when the stars turned red. Ethan glanced up at the crimson sky, the same color that had filled the air since the war ended. Then maybe she was right, he said quietly. Lyra leaned against his arm, her small voice calm. Then we keep walking, Ethan nodded. Yes, we keep walking. He lifted her again and stepped out into the glowing grass. The ruined world around them seemed endless, but for the first time since his crash, Ethan felt purpose again. Somewhere beyond the valley, answers waited. And maybe, just maybe, Lyra's mother too. The silver grass whispered under Ethan's boots as dawn began to rise over the valley. The sun here was pale blue, casting strange shadows across the ruins. He held Lyra's hand tightly as they walked toward the old human outpost. It stood like a ghost from another age, half buried in sand, walls cracked, antennas twisted. Ethan's chest tightened as they drew closer. This place had once belonged to his unit. He remembered guarding its gates, laughing with soldiers who never came back from the explosion. The sight brought old guilt he thought he had buried. Lyra tilted her head. You're remembering something painful. He looked at her, surprised. How do you know that? I can feel the air around people when they hurt, she said softly. It changes sound. It becomes heavy. He forced a small smile. You really can feel everything, can't you? She nodded. That's why my mother told me to never lie. Because the world can always hear the truth. They reached the main entrance. The door was jammed, but Ethan managed to force it open. Inside, the halls were dark and cold. Dust floated in the air like mist. Faded warning signs hung crooked on the walls. Authorized personnel only. One read. Lyra's hand brushed along the wall as she followed. I can feel energy here, she whispered. This place isn't dead, Ethan frowned. Let's hope that's a good thing. He turned on his wrist light and followed the corridor to the old command room. Screens covered the walls, most cracked, but one still flickered faintly. He brushed the dust off the console and found a power switch. The machine hummed weakly to life. Come on, he muttered, tapping the screen. A login prompt appeared, still carrying the insignia of the E-17 unit. The same code from Lyra's pendant. He felt his stomach twist. Lyra held the pendant up. The blue glow grew stronger and the screen responded instantly. The system unlocked itself. Lines of code scrolled across, then a voice played. A woman's voice, soft and calm. If you are hearing this, then the child has survived, the voice said. This is Dr. Aveline Voss, project lead on Operation Hybrid Dawn. Ethan froze. He remembered that name. She was the scientist stationed here years ago. The message continued. The experiment was never meant to harm. We were trying to save both species. Lyra was born to bridge two worlds, to carry human strength and alien empathy. But the government saw her as a weapon. I had to hide her before they erased everything. Ethan's heart pounded. He looked at Lyra. Her small face was calm, but her hands trembled. That's my mother, she whispered. The recording flickered again. If you're still alive, Lyra, find the human with the scar on his right hand. He was one of us once. He will protect you. Ethan stared at his hand. The old burn scar from the explosion marked his skin. His breath caught in his throat. Lyra turned her head toward him. It's you, she said quietly. You're the one she trusted. Before Ethan could speak, the console sparked. A red warning flashed across the screen. Intrusion detected. Signal trace initiated. Damn it, Ethan said, pulling Lyra away. They've got our location. A deep rumble shook the floor. Outside engines roared. Through the broken roof, he saw bright lights cutting across the sky. Dropships. Lyra clung to him. They're here again. He grabbed a pack of old grenades from a locker and checked his weapon. We have to move. There's a back exit in the lower tunnels. They ran down the stairs as dust rained from the ceiling. The outpost groaned like a dying beast. Alarms echoed through the halls. Lyra stumbled once, but Ethan caught her. "I'm sorry," she said. "I'm slowing you down." "Don't ever say that," he replied. "You're the reason I'm running." The lights flickered as they reached the lower corridor. Ahead was a reinforced door half open, leading to the valley's far edge. But before they could reach it, voices echoed from behind. Soldiers in black armor poured in, weapons raised. Ethan fired first, his last charge hitting the ceiling pipes. Steam burst out, filling the air. He pulled Lyra through the fog. Bullets tore through the walls around them, sparks flying. "Ethan," Lyra said suddenly, her voice calm despite the chaos. "I can stop them." He looked at her. "No, you can't risk it." She stepped forward slightly, her pendant glowing brighter. The air grew thick, humming with strange energy. The soldiers froze mid-step, their visors flickering. One by one, they dropped their weapons and fell still. Ethan stared in shock. "What did you do?" "I made them sleep," she whispered. "Mother said I could, but it hurts my head." He lifted her up quickly. "Then let's get out before you pass out." They ran through the final tunnel and burst into the open valley once more. The first rays of sunlight hit the horizon, painting the sky gold and blue. Ethan set her down near the rocks and looked back at the burning outpost. Smoke rose into the air. Whatever secrets it held were now gone. Lyra leaned against him, breathing hard. "She knew you would come," she said faintly. He looked down at her. "Your mother was right about one thing," he said quietly. "You really are the bridge between two worlds." She smiled weakly. "Then we can still save both," Ethan nodded. "We'll try. But first we need to stay alive." Far above them, the last dropship circled, scanning the land below. The hunt wasn't over. Their journey had only just begun. The morning light spread across the valley, but Ethan and Lyra couldn't stop to rest. Smoke still rose from the outpost behind them, twisting into the sky like a signal for their enemies. Every shadow looked alive, every gust of wind carried the sound of engines. Ethan knew they were being hunted again. He adjusted the strap on his pack and looked down at Lyra walking beside him. Her steps were slow but steady. The pendant around her neck had stopped glowing after she used her power. She looked pale, her skin almost translucent. "You okay?" he asked. "I'm tired," she said softly. "When I use my voice, it takes my strength." Ethan crouched beside her. "Then we rest for a few minutes. No one's going to find us here." Lyra shook her head. "They always find me." Ethan looked around. They had stopped near an old forest of metallic trees. Their trunks shimmered silver, and their leaves clinked softly in the wind. It was beautiful but eerie, the kind of place that felt both alive and dead. He helped Lyra sit against a tree. "Your mother said you were born to bridge two worlds. Maybe that's why they want you." Lyra touched her pendant. "Mother said I was made from love, not war. But the people who came after us, they didn't understand." Ethan looked away. He had been one of those people once, a soldier who followed orders without asking questions. Now he was protecting the very thing his world had feared. A faint beep from his wristband made his stomach tighten. Motion signals. Multiple contacts closing in fast. He stood quickly. "They're here." Lyra rose to her feet, clutching his sleeve. "How many?" "Too many," he said. "We have to move." They started running through the forest. The ground was uneven, roots and metal shards breaking through the soil. Drones buzzed overhead, scanning the area with beams of white light. Ethan kept to the shadows, pulling Lyra behind trees, moving when the lights turned away. One drone passed too close. Its beam touched Lyra's pendant, causing it to flash bright blue. The machine screeched and turned toward them. Ethan fired his weapon. The blast hit the drone's sensor, sending it spinning into the ground. But the explosion echoed through the valley. Now every tracker would know their position. Lyra's voice trembled. "They're coming from the east." Ethan grabbed her hand and ran downhill. The metallic leaves sliced at his arms as they moved. He could hear engines roaring closer. The enemy had vehicles now, fast ones. At the bottom of the slope, they reached an old riverbed, dry and cracked. In the distance, half buried in the dust, stood the remains of a broken cargo ship. Ethan pointed. "We can hide there." They hurried inside through a torn hatch. The air smelled like rust and oil. Ethan blocked the entrance with a piece of metal. "Stay behind me." Outside, engines stopped. Voices echoed. Human voices. He could make out words through the static of their helmets. Search the wreck. The target's close. Lyra pressed her hands over her ears. They're angry, she whispered. So much hate. Ethan aimed his weapon toward the door, heart pounding. He only had one charge left. If they came in, this would be over fast. Suddenly, Lyra's pendant flickered again. I can hear her, she said, voice shaking. Who? Ethan asked. My mother. She's near. She's calling me. Before he could respond, a voice came through the soldiers' comms outside. A woman's voice. Calm, familiar. Stand down, the voice ordered. Bring them to me unharmed. Ethan froze. That voice, it couldn't be. Lyra smiled faintly. It's her. He hesitated, torn between belief and fear. Could her mother truly be alive? Or was this another trick to capture them? The soldiers outside stopped moving. Silence fell. Then footsteps approached slowly. A figure stepped into the broken light at the hatch. A tall woman in armor, her face hidden under a visor. Lyra whispered, Mother. The woman removed her helmet. Her eyes glowed faintly blue, the same as Lyra's pendant. She looked human, yet not completely. Ethan lowered his weapon slowly. Dr. Voss? The woman smiled sadly. You remembered my name. Lyra ran forward, but the woman raised a hand gently. Wait, little one. You're not safe yet. She looked at Ethan. They've turned against both of us. The people who made her think she's a weapon. They're coming in full force now. Ethan stepped closer. Why, what do they want? She's the key to balance, Voss said. Her voice can connect every mind, human or alien. They fear what they can't control. A thunderous sound cut through the air. Ships descending fast. Voss grabbed Lyra's hand and looked at Ethan. If you trust me, follow me. There's one place left where we can hide her. Ethan didn't hesitate, he nodded. Lead the way. They ran together toward the far end of the valley as fire rained from the sky. Explosions tore through the metal trees behind them. The ground shook and the light from Lyra's pendant grew brighter with every step. Ethan looked at her face, tired but glowing with quiet strength. He knew now there was no going back. The chase had become more than survival. It was the beginning of something bigger, a fight for a truth the whole galaxy had forgotten, and he was ready for it. Wind howled across the open plains as Ethan, Lyra, and Dr. Voss ran toward the mountains. The air burned with the smell of smoke and metal. Behind them, the human dropships hovered like dark clouds, releasing mechanical hunters that crawled across the ground. Every sound of their steps echoed like thunder. Ethan felt the weight of exhaustion pressing on his shoulders, but he didn't slow down. Lyra's small hand was warm in his grip, and her pendant glowed brighter with each heartbeat. Beside them, Dr. Voss moved quickly despite her torn armor. Her calmness under fire made her seem unreal, like she had already seen this moment before. They reached a narrow canyon carved into the side of the mountain. Dr. Voss pressed her hand against the stone wall, and a hidden door slid open with a hiss. Inside was a passage leading into darkness. Hurry, she said. They'll track us soon. Ethan guided Lyra in first. The air inside was cooler, filled with a faint hum of energy. As the door sealed behind them, silence fell. Lyra turned her head toward her mother. I thought you were gone, she said softly. I waited for you. Dr. Voss knelt and held her daughter's hands. I never wanted to leave you, Lyra. They were coming for us. I had to hide you where they couldn't find you. Ethan watched quietly, trying to understand what kind of experiment could create a child like her. You said she's the key, he said finally. What does that mean? Dr. Voss stood and faced him. Her eyes glowed faintly blue in the dark. When Earth scientists first met alien life, they feared it. But I believed we could join instead of fight. Lyra was born from that belief. She carries human DNA and alien resonance. Her mind can connect with both species. Ethan frowned. You mean she can read minds? Not exactly, Voss said. She feels emotion, truth, intent. That's how she stopped the drones. She doesn't attack. She harmonizes. When her voice resonates, machines lose aggression. Soldiers lose rage. She can bring peace without force. Lyra lowered her head. Then why are they afraid of me? Her mother's voice softened. Because peace takes away power. Those in command would rather keep fear alive. Ethan's chest tightened. He had fought in those same wars, never knowing what they were protecting. Now he realized they were fighting to stay divided. They walked deeper into the mountain until they reached a large chamber glowing with white light. In the center stood a circular console surrounded by floating crystals. It looked part human, part alien. This is what's left of the old Unity station, Voss explained. It was built to merge two networks, human data and alien energy. I hid it when they shut the project down. Ethan looked around in awe. And you think this can help her? Voss nodded. If she stands here and activates the signal, her resonance will spread across the system. Every weapon, every machine designed for destruction will stop working. But it will drain her completely. Lyra turned to her. Drain me how? Voss hesitated. You might not survive it, Lyra. Your heart was built to hold light, not to release it all at once. Ethan stepped forward. Then we find another way. Voss shook her head. There isn't one. The enemy has already linked to every defense grid. When they arrive, this planet will burn. She's the only one who can stop it. Lyra's voice trembled. If I do it, will you stay with me? Voss smiled sadly. Always. The ground suddenly shook. The walls vibrated as explosions echoed outside. Ethan ran to the entrance camera feed. Dropships were descending over the valley. Hundreds of soldiers were moving in. They've found us, he said. Voss looked at Lyra. It's time. Lyra walked slowly to the center of the platform. The crystals floated higher, responding to her energy. Her pendant glowed like a small sun. She took a deep breath, her blind eyes lifting toward the light above. Ethan's hands clenched. She's just a child. She's more than that, Voss said. She's hope. The air began to hum. Light spiraled around Lyra, forming a sphere of blue energy. Ethan shielded his eyes as the brightness filled the chamber. Then Lyra's voice broke through the air. A soft tone, pure and calm. It wasn't words, but a sound that carried meaning. Ethan felt it inside his chest, in his bones, in his heart. It was sorrow, forgiveness, and peace all at once. Outside, the battle stopped. The drones fell silent. The ships froze midair. Soldiers dropped their weapons and looked to the sky as if waking from a nightmare. Ethan turned toward Lyra. Her body trembled, the light around her dimming. Lyra, stop! He shouted. You're going to burn out. She smiled faintly. It's okay. I can finally see. The glow faded. She collapsed, and Ethan ran forward, catching her in his arms. Her breathing was shallow, her skin warm like fading light. Dr. Voss knelt beside them, tears glimmering in her eyes. She did it, she whispered. She saved them all. Ethan looked down at the child who had changed everything. She saved us, he said quietly. Outside, the sky turned clear for the first time in years. The war had ended in silence, but the cost was heavy, and the final truth was still waiting in the light. The silence after the light faded felt endless. The world that had screamed with fire and machines was now still. The only sound was the faint wind moving through the cracks in the mountain. Ethan sat on the cold floor, holding Lyra close. Her breathing was soft but weak. The glow of her pendant had vanished completely. Dr. Voss placed her hand on the girl's forehead. She's alive, she whispered. But her energy is gone. Her body needs time. Ethan exhaled with relief. She stopped a war, he said. No one will believe it was a child who did it. She's more than a child, Voss replied quietly. She's everything I hoped humanity could become. Outside the mountain, the sky had turned clear blue for the first time in decades. The metallic dust that once poisoned the air had scattered. The human ships hung motionless without orders. Soldiers stood on the fields, confused, their weapons powerless. The war had ended without a single word. Ethan laid Lyra gently on the floor and looked at the control console. The crystals still pulsed faintly, holding traces of her power. He touched one of them and an image shimmered in the air, a vision of Lyra's memories. He saw her mother singing to her, guiding her through bright halls filled with light, promising that one day she would see through sound. Then he saw soldiers breaking in, fire everywhere, and Dr. Voss running with a small child in her arms. The image faded, leaving the room in quiet again. Lyra stirred weakly. Is it over? She whispered. Ethan leaned closer. Yes, it's over. You did it, she smiled faintly. I saw light for a moment. It was beautiful, her mother's eyes filled with tears. That was your own light, Lyra. Ethan helped her sit up slowly. The whole planet stopped fighting, he said. Machines, weapons, everything went silent. You gave them peace. Lyra turned her head slightly, sensing the calm outside. I can feel their hearts now. They're not afraid anymore. For the first time, Ethan allowed himself to breathe freely. He looked at Dr. Voss. What happens now? When Command finds out the system is dead, they'll come again. They might, she said. But this time they'll come without hate. The network she built has spread beyond this planet. It connected every mind for a heartbeat, enough to show them what peace feels like. Ethan stood and walked to the tunnel opening. The horizon was glowing gold. He could see small groups of people emerging from bunkers and ships, humans and aliens walking together. No one was shooting. No one was running. They looked up at the same sky as if it was new. Lyra slowly stood too, holding her mother's hand. "I'm not afraid anymore," she said. "Before I only heard pain. Now I hear something else." What do you hear?" Ethan asked. She smiled. "Hope." Voss looked at Ethan. "She's not done yet. Her voice will continue to grow. Someday she'll reach other worlds too." He nodded. "Then she'll need protection. I'll stay with her." Lyra turned toward his voice and reached out her hand. He took it gently. "You were the first human to listen," she said. "My mother said one would come." She was right, Ethan smiled faintly. "Guess I was just stubborn enough to care." Outside, a faint vibration trembled through the mountain. A ship was approaching, but this one flew slowly without weapons. Its lights were white, not red. A signal of peace. Voss walked to the console and activated a beacon. "That's the new Alliance fleet," she said. "They're not enemies anymore." Ethan looked at her. "Then it worked." "All of it," she nodded, "because one blind child believed in light." The ship landed near the valley's edge. Figures stepped out, humans and aliens together wearing the same symbol on their uniforms. Ethan led Lyra outside. The wind was soft and cool, carrying the scent of fresh air. The soldiers bowed as Lyra passed. One of them whispered, "The voice of peace." Lyra stopped and faced the sunlight, feeling its warmth on her face. "Mother," she said softly, "I can feel it now. The world isn't broken anymore." Dr. Voss walked beside her, placing a hand on her shoulder. "You healed it, my child." Ethan looked at them both, his heart heavy with quiet pride. For the first time in years, he didn't feel like a soldier or a survivor. He felt human again. Lyra lifted her head. "Ethan, will you stay with us?" He nodded. "For as long as you need me," she smiled. "Then we can build something new together." The three of them stood side by side as the sun rose higher. The mountains shimmered with light, and the broken machines in the distance reflected the glow like mirrors of a new dawn. The war was over. The world was silent, and somewhere deep inside that silence, the voice of a blind alien girl had changed the fate of two species forever. The legend of Lyra, the girl who saw with sound and healed with her heart, had just begun.